Hello everybody, this is Manu and welcome back to the second part of the Defiance review for the fire cards. So let's dive right in. Okay, so first we have Fireheart Recruit and Oni, which is nice. We have a bunch of new Onis in the set. Might make it worse to check if there's any kind of Oni tribal stuff going on. Probably not, but especially for the people that really enjoy tribal, they'll probably find a good enough Oni tribal deck now to mess around with it. In Constructed, this is clearly too underpowered. In Limited, however, this seems potentially fine if there's not too much that can punish you for being 1 health, and if there is good enough aggressive archetypes, a 3 attack quick draw unit as a 3-drop seems pretty solid, because quick draw in aggressive decks can be really strong and annoying in Limited, especially with weapons and combat tricks to back them up. So in Limited this seems like a fine playable potentially. Next we have Flametall Whip. The weapon gives +1/+1 and charge. The problem with charge is that the weapon costs 3, so you have to play the unit and the weapon in the same turn, and playing a reasonably sized unit alongside this will take pretty long or like pretty late in the game till you can manage both in the same turn, so the charge is kind of irrelevant on the card. And then on summon you get 3/1/1 Wildcats with charge that you have to sacrifice at the end of turn, which is also not that great. Sure, it gets better with something like Xenon Obelisk, but Praxis Tokens just has better things that it can do, and the +1/+1 from the weapon itself is also not very impressive, so all in all, pretty underpowered, unimpressive card in my book. In Limited, it is honestly probably not much better or even worse, so I don't see this making my Limited deck usually for now without much knowledge about the intricacies of the format specifically. Next we have Grandfather's X, and what can I say? Grandfather can keep his X, because 3 cost +1/+1 weapon, pretty underwhelming. Sure, it's a recurring renown enabler, because when the wielder dies, you get the X back, but it is a really bad Steel Fang Chakram, basically. So yeah, stay away from this in both formats would be my call. Next we have Lazy Firemain. This is probably a pretty solid card in Limited. 3 cost 3/3 is not bad. The Wildcat you get on Renown is decent. Depends a bit on the sizing in the format, like it might be that it's more of a filler, or it could also be a pretty solid 3-drop, depending on the rest of the format. It's a bit too early to tell for me now. And in Constructed this is clearly not relevant. It's a card meant for Limited. Next we have Nika the Freescaler. She is a 3/3 for triple fire, so basically only works in mono fire or almost mono fire decks. She has Pledge, which is a nice bonus. She is only a 3/3, which is kinda underwhelming in Constructed. She is an Explorer, which could be marginally relevant. Whenever the enemy plays a spell directly on her, she deals 3 damage to the enemy player. That unfortunately excludes sweepers, and outside of sweepers, a 3/3 is really not that threatening that the opponent is forced to deal with her with a spell, so they can also just deal with it in combat or with a sweeper or whatever. And that you can pay 3 to double her attack is also not great. Basically pay 1 power per attack that you get her, unless she has like a weapon or some other buff. I think the card's pretty underpowered and pretty unimpressive. Kind of disappointing legendary, in my opinion. In Limited this is totally fine, playable theoretically, but the triple fire makes it really hard to support, so most decks will just not be able to support this, I think. Next we have Phoenix Stone. That's kind of a cool card, an interesting legendary. We get a 3-cost relic, and we can pay 1 to transform Phoenix Stone into a 4/4 Molten Phoenix, which is a 4/4 flying charge, and at the end of your turn transform Molten Phoenix into a Phoenix Stone, so it keeps transforming back at the end of each turn. So this makes it a threat that the opponent either needs to deal with attachment removal or fast removal, otherwise this will just keep hitting them. The problem these days is, especially with merchants, that people have easy access to both attachment removal and usually a fair share of fast removal, making this card just kind of a clunky, expensive threat that unfortunately doesn't have the resilience that it should and would need to have to be worth the effort. So yeah, that's a bit sad, honestly, because the card's kind of cool, but yeah, it's just too easy to deal with, and its resiliency is the main upside that would make up for being a 3-cost do nothing that then requires you to spend 2 power every turn to deal 4 damage to the opponent, basically. That is also only offensive. So it's a much worse Flame Stoker, basically. In limited, it's pretty solid. I mean, a 4/4 flyer is annoying. There's not much main deck attachment removal and not a lot of fast removal that kills this. So in limited, this seems pretty brutal, actually, if your deck is offensive enough that it doesn't care about spending the power and not being able to block. Then we have Shiftstone Processor. When a unit goes to your void, you get +1 power this turn. So basically a worse combustion cell in addition to combustion cell in Grenadin type decks. But yeah, I think the card is just way too uncontrollable and underpowered to have any realistic implications for Constructed, and then limited even less so. Next we have Bladerang. The influence is deep in this one. First we had Nika with triple fire. Here we have Bladerang with quadruple fire. We get a relic weapon that's a 1/3 that has double damage. Keep in mind, weapons abilities also affect your spells. So if you play this on turn 5 and then play a torch, your torch deals 6 damage, for example, which is why the card is so expensive. You could also play this on turn 4, and if you can protect it, like you can play a 12 damage Obliterate on turn 5, for example. But yeah, the card's pretty cute. It's effectively a 2/3 relic weapon, so it doesn't kill a whole lot. It dies to almost everything that it damages because of this 3 armor. And yeah, it's mainly there for the payoff of like spells dealing double damage. And quadruple fire also makes it super restrictive. I'm not seeing this card being anything else than cute, and a limited quadruple fire doesn't seem very supportable. Next we have Flame Brewer, a 4-cost 5/3 with Reckless, which is pretty problematic. Like Reckless on a 3 health unit, especially on one that has less than 6 attack, means it just runs into cards like Vara and Sandstorm Titan, for example, and all the bigger units after that without even trading, so just gonna run itself to death a lot. And the upside is not big enough, in my opinion. At the start of your turn you create and draw a random spell that you even have to discard at the end of the turn. So if the spell is too expensive for you to play now, you don't get to use it. If the card is too situational for your current situation, you also never get to use it. So you basically flip a coin in your turn on like hopefully getting a useful spell out of it. Probably only have one chance because it might die on the first combat step, so I think the card's pretty bad, actually. In limited, it's solid. I mean, a 4-cost 5/3 with upside, even with the Reckless, seems fine. It's probably a bit easier to protect because the unit sizing is different. So in limited, I'm fine putting this into my more proactive decks. Next we have Gilded Flames. The idea of the card is kinda nice. The problem is it's just way too clunky. First of all, it deals only 2 damage, which is not a lot, so it can only help finish things off usually. Then the unit is transformed, which is nice, so it stops any Entomb stuff and recursion. And then it's transformed into a treasure trove, but in order to turn the treasure trove into anything, you have to spend another 2 power to draw the card. So you're spending 6 power to deal 2 damage and draw a card and suppress any recursion or Entomb type stuff. That just isn't worth it. Sure, you can split the cost over 4 and 2 and it's fast, but yeah, the card is just too clunky. If it would cost 3, it would be interesting. This way it's just too clunky. But in limited, it seems like a pretty nice card regardless, because it's good value and decent interaction, especially against the smaller flyers and stuff like that. Then we have Hardside Cyclops, another limited only card. It's a 4-cost 4/3 Sentinel, has Amplify 2, and you get to exhaust an enemy unit. Can be a nice finisher in limited. It's a decent turn 4 play if you have nothing else. It's just a solid, flexible unit in a more proactive limited deck, really. And last but not least, for the second part, we have Ruckus Rouser, another Oni, the 4-cost 2/2, and Renown. You get power this turn equal to double the cost of the spell or weapon that you used on it. So you can play this on turn 4, then turn 5, play some expensive weapon on it, get a lot of power and play something big. So you can even use this kind of as like a power ramp kind of guy. But it's super fragile, super overcosted for its stats. So it's mostly just sort of like a relic that has this one-time use, and then the weapon or spell that you play on this will often be kind of wasted because of the measly body. So it seems way too fragile and unreliable to build around, and if you don't build around it, it's too weak. And in limited, I think without the build around, this is even less impressive. And it's just so weak of a body, even if it ramps you into something big early on. And you also don't want to play super big cards that this actually would make this a nice card to get payoff. So yeah, not a card that is particularly likely to see play in either of the two formats, really. Okay, and this concludes the review of the fire cards part 2. Tomorrow I will be back with the remaining fire cards to wrap up the fire review, and then we'll move on to time the day after tomorrow. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed the review so far. Let me know what you guys think about the cards in the comments and my assessment. And I'm happy to answer questions as well if there are any. Hit the like button, hit the skull logo to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Turn on the notification icon to not miss out the rest of the series and future content. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook over here, and catch me live streaming on Twitch with the new set. I'll probably be on again later today if I can. And yeah, you can also find all the info in the description, of course, as clickable links if you don't want to type them up yourselves. We all know how it goes. Yeah, one last thing. If you want to further support this content and support EternalTitans.com and my YouTube channel, please consider whitelisting both EternalTitans.com and YouTube in your ad block. And yeah, support us with ads for free. That would be great and keeps the free content going and helps us improve the website and the content constantly. Okay, that's it again for today. This was the Eternal set review Defiance with the fire cards part 2. I'm your host Manu S. I thank you for watching. I see you next time with part 3. Bye!